Hey everyone, new location today, bringing you into fields of buttercups here in the Peak District on this dark of the moon moment just before the new Moon Solar Eclipse, which is happening later today between 11:30 and 12 noon UK time. This is Thursday the 10th of June, I'm recording this, and I woke up bright as a button this morning. At about 6 a.m, I watched an hour of Oracle Girl, which was the first thing that presented itself to me, and I really felt called to devote a whole hour to watching a really powerful video by her. I've posted it on my Telegram channel, Rachel Speaks Out, and you know what it's like when you get a sort of 50-minute video and you sort of watch the first 5-10 minutes to get a flavour, and quite often think, don't have time for this, but I really felt called to stay right to the end. Super powerful. These messages which are being gifted to us by wise souls who are a bit ahead of us on the journey, it's well worth listening and creating the space for them, creating the space for these messages. So one of the things that has really strongly landed with me between the lunar eclipse, which was about 2 weeks ago, which was the full moon lunar eclipse, and this new moon solar eclipse, both of which are in the Sagittarius Gemini axis, which is my own axis. I have a Sagittarian sun and a Gemini ascendant, and my north node of the moon, which is my destiny in this lifetime, is actually conjunct this new moon, so it feels very powerful and symbolic to me. I just wanted to reflect to you that the whole of what is unfolding on the planet right now, that we are attempting to extricate ourselves from, can be summed up in 2 words: persecutor, victim. And those of you who know about trauma and about healing and therapy, you will know about the Cartman drama triangle and this persecutor-victim dynamic, which shows up again and again and again. And it shows up in our life. It shows up particularly in our childhood. And it's what's playing out on the world stage, this abuse of power and helpless victims being at the mercy of individuals who have managed through some way or other to gain power over us. So that may be governments, that may be your boss, that may be your landlord, that may be your partner, your husband. It may be anyone that you perceive that you depend upon for your security and for your safety. And the persecutor-victim dynamic is rooted in our childhood, and it's typically rooted in frozen trauma, because when we are young and we have a parent or a carer or a teacher, or in any situation where we're vulnerable and we are powerless in the face of overwhelming external attack of whatever shape or form that might be verbal attack, it might be physical attack, it might be sexual abuse. What tends to happen, because we can't fight and because we can't flight, we freeze. And so all of that terror, all of that fear, all of that pain, all of that anger becomes trapped, it becomes frozen into our energetic body. And then in later life, what happens is someone comes along and triggers that unresolved trauma, and we go into fight-flight. Now, in the Cartman drama triangle dynamic, the persecutor-victim axis is basically the persecutor. You typically have a kind of go-to response when you're triggered. So if you tend to go to persecutor dynamic, you will tend to go into anger and fight. And if you have a victim dynamic, you will tend to go into fear and flight. Those are the big two, anger and fear. They are the root of the fight-flight response. And the fight-flight response is very reptilian. It's a core, basic survival instinct. It kicks in milliseconds. And what it has the effect of doing is closing down the frontal cortex. So when we're triggered, we lose our ability to think straight, to be logical, to be rational, and we're just reacting from a very core primal energy. And so this huge persecutor-victim dynamic which is playing out on the planet right now, when you understand about trauma, it's actually a huge opportunity for us to bring conscious awareness to all of that trapped fear, all of that trapped pain, all of that trapped anger that we haven't been able to work through and we haven't been able to fully express. And it's kind of running the show of our life. And so the key thing with all of this, and it's easier said than done, the key thing is to start to become consciously aware of being triggered. And just to create that space, and it's only a few seconds of like, whoa, there's that feeling in my body again. Oh, I'm under attack. And just to create that space of like, this feels familiar, this response, here it comes again. What's this about? And fully feeling in our body, fully feeling that contraction or that reaction. It might be the rising fire of anger, energy that just makes you want to attack and kind of shout back and lash out. As Dr. Gabor Mate says, take your attention off the trigger and place it on the unexploded bomb of unresolved trauma that it is attached to, because everyone who's caught up in the persecutor-victim dynamic is at some level storing trauma that is unresolved, and that trauma is from our childhood. As I say, it can be from abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse. There's many different forms of abuse, and of course it can be created by the trauma of things, external incidents, things like war, living through war, or having parents who lived through the war, having a very critical, controlling parent, not feeling you're good enough, being bullied at school. I mean, there's a whole realm of different trauma scenarios that we have experienced as human beings. And so this is what Oracle Girl is kind of talking about, this purification space, this unplugging of these deeply embedded programs which have us caught in this reptilian fight-flight response that keep triggering us over and over again. So the way to alchemize, to heal, to transmute that dynamic is simply by bringing conscious awareness to it, because when you bring something out of the darkness, out of the subconscious where it's running the show, and you bring it into conscious awareness and you start to fully feel it, you start to explore it, you start to give it space, you start to have compassion for it, what happens is you begin to be able to move to a place of gratitude to the external trigger. And rather than being angry at the external trigger, you start to say, wow, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for helping me to feel that anger, that pain, that fear. Thank you for helping me to fully feel that, because if I can fully feel it, I can start to alchemize it. It doesn't need to run the show. Now, a very important part of the Karpman drama triangle, just coming up into the village here. So I'll keep recording actually. I don't think everyone in the Yulegrave village where I live appreciates my messages, my profile. I made a new friend here who said that the villagers feel that I should be put in the stocks and have tomatoes thrown at me. And I guess that is another fear response, isn't it? If someone comes into the safe space, creates some waves, speaks out, there's a reaction to external, new, threatening forces, voices that threaten to disrupt the safety, the peace, the status quo. So the third role in the Karpman drama triangle that is really key to understand, that is the rescuer. What tends to happen, particularly if you are in that place of victim, powerless victim, in the face of an external overwhelming bully, you tend to look for a rescuer, someone who is going to save the day, someone who's going to help you. And it's also very tempting, if you are a victim and you feel you've escaped from victimhood, to start moving to that place of wanting to rescue others because you understand their pain and you position yourself as a rescuer, a healer. And you start to attempt to save people. And it's a very good way of getting clients, I have to say. You know, if you're dealing with people who are vulnerable, in a lot of pain, looking for a rescuer, quite easy to position yourself as the saviour, as the rescuer, and it's also known as a messiah complex. So people who are caught up in the persecutor-victim dynamic will often look to a rescuer, look to the person who can help them, can save them, can lead them to safety. And of course, this is how the government, it's very clever the way that the government have done it. They've created an invisible enemy, and they've said, we'll keep you safe. If you follow our guidelines, we can keep you safe. If you've ever been in an abusive relationship, you will know that that is one of the techniques that an abuser uses, is they will undermine your feelings of security and safety. They'll create invisible enemies, and they will present a scenario where they can keep you safe. And quite often, they will create a physical trap, maybe through money, maybe through giving you a home. And then suddenly, what happens is you discover that the rescuer, who you thought loved you and was there to save you, keep you safe, suddenly turns into a persecutor. So it's important to bear in mind with the Karpman drama triangle dynamic of persecutor, victim, rescuer, that we move around roles. So suddenly the victim, who is starting to feel all their anger, will move into attack and become the persecutor. And quite often, the victim who is looking for the external rescuer and is attaching onto some kind of saviour, messiah figure, when that person, the slightest piece of letdown, when that person doesn't quite come through at any level, the victim who has latched on to the messiah will start to attack the messiah and pull them down, and try to denigrate them and make them wrong and undermine them. And isn't that exactly what is happening with all of the potential saviours of our current situation? One by one, they are all being attacked, labelled as shills, labelled as Illuminati in hiding. And that's why I have been quite outspoken about Russell Brand. And it's rooted in also my own experience, because I too have been attacked, and I recognise it's because, having made all these videos, what has happened is I've attracted a huge following who are looking for rescuers. And of course, the dynamic has kicked in. So all of those people in victim mindset who have been attracted to me, seeing me as some kind of saviour who holds all the answers, and I'm just a woman with an iPhone on the end of a stick expressing how I'm feeling. All of those people who've attached onto me as a saviour, as some kind of messiah, someone who's going to lead them out of slavery into the promised land, no one can fulfill that role for you. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And how do we save ourselves? We save ourselves by going on the inner planes and finding that inner place of stillness and peace. By healing our trauma, by not living in that place of fight, flight response. So that we create the space so we don't have to add more fear and more fight to an already inflamed scenario. And so this is the opportunity that is really presented by this new moon solar eclipse. It's happening between 11:30 a.m. and 12 noon UK time today, Thursday 10th of June, and it's a wonderful portal. It's a wonderful opportunity to find that harmonic balance. Because essentially a new moon solar eclipse is where the moon comes in between the earth and the sun. And because this new moon is quite a distance away from the earth, it doesn't actually cover the sun. It's not a full solar eclipse. Hello. Oh dear, the dogs. Oh dear, I have to be careful here. The dog's in the river and Kobe's going mad. No, come on, no going in the river. There's a beautiful natural swimming area here where all the kids come and swim in the river. It's like a little swimming pool in the river. I'm walking by the river Bradford here. This is the other river that runs alongside the Yulegrave, town of Yulegrave, village of Yulegrave, really. I live near the river Lathkill, which is the other river running parallel to it, and they both join together and they come into the River Wye, and then it flows out up, I think, to Humber, to Hull, out into the North Sea. Anyway, little diversion there, little local diversion. So it's really beautiful, pristine, clear waters, and it's still fairly early on Thursday morning, not too many tourists out. So going back to this new moon solar eclipse, because the moon is quite small, when it comes to cover the sun, it creates a ring of fire. And what it symbolizes is a beautiful harmonic balance between the sun and the moon, which is essentially the masculine and the feminine. And we all have an inner masculine and feminine, so I'm not talking about men and women. But of course, a lot of persecutor victim is created by the male power over the female, and which is, the whole Me Too movement was based on that abuse of power, where men have abused their power and taken advantage of women who are seen as weaker, sexually exploited them, beaten them, abused them. And of course, we're seeing the same kind of dynamic, that persecutor victim, in the whole child trafficking scenarios. That will really be touching on a nerve for you if you experienced any kind of physical and sexual abuse as a child. So we need to be really aware of what is playing out on the larger picture. The larger screen of the planet right now is actually helping us to access the unresolved trauma, particularly from childhood, of this persecutor victim power over dynamic. So this is a wonderful opportunity to bring those two into balance. The sun and the moon in perfect alignment, creating a ring of fire where the feminine subdues the masculine energy. And if you understand anything about the tarot, you'll know that it's symbolic in the 8th card of the major arcana, the strength card, which is the divine feminine controlling or taming, not controlling, taming the lion. And I often feel like that when I'm out with Kobe. Kobe is a real alpha male French bulldog, very strong, very fast, very willful. And he can go into that alpha male mode. French bully bulldog. That's what my sons call him, the bully bulldog. Kobe. See him there. He's nearly a year old. He was actually born on the summer solstice 2020. He's a little shaman, this dog. Real therapy dog. Has really brought a lot of magic into the life of my family, into my life and the life of my sons. Taught us a lot about coming back into nature, and he brings me out into nature every day. We go on these big adventurous long dog walks. I don't often do filming with him because he's getting big and strong now, so I tend to spend a lot more time with him, training him as best I can. So this taming of this inner masculine feminine dynamic, really powerful time to bring those two energies in balance. So I just wanted to share that because it's come up very strongly on my Telegram grouped timelines in the past week. A lot of people attacking me, and also on my YouTube channel, a lot of people viciously attacking me in this persecutor, victim, rescuer, drama triangle. The thing about bullying, if you've ever been bullied, the absolute antidote to that scenario is to find that still space, is not to go into fight. It's also not to go into flight. It's simply just to say no. No. I do not consent. I do not agree. I'm not going to be drawn in. I have a right to live. And I'm powerful. Not in a violent, angry, controlling way, but just in a very quiet, still way of that absolute conviction that we are all valuable, we're all powerful, we all have the right to live, and as long as we do no harm to another, then we are morally, ethically on very strong karmic ground. So with that thought, wishing you lots of love, and please use this new moon solar eclipse window to vision the most delicious and beautiful expression of your future life for you, your family, your friends, and for our global family. Okay, bye for now.